study you mentioned and I mentioned is that even those that say they're in favor of it and are like watching it as a couple have worse outcomes down the line. And I think that's part of the point here is that even if you're in a very unique situation, you're making your living doing this thing, right? And so in your mind, of course it's going to be great. I know you're going to defend it and say it's going to be great, but the reality is even people that are defending it or saying it's fine in my marriage down the line don't have the best outcome.
Yeah, well, also, to be fair too, real quick, because you talked about based on a career, you guys are both ideologically, you could never change your position on this.
That's completely not true. Of course,
aren't you both religious?
All the studies show that it's good for you. Would you say it's okay?
I chose to be Catholic, and I can choose to reject my faith.
Sure, but if like the research,
no one's forcing me to be Catholic.
Yeah, but she could also change her career too, right?
My point is that even if
saying that, like,
all the data show
guys, just one at a time.
We can change our mind on empirical questions about whether a majority of people feel satisfaction in something. You can't use a social science survey to determine whether something is moral or immoral.
Yeah, sure. I was only pushing back on the claim that like because it's her job, she has to defend it. Because
I was more speaking to outcomes though, because what I'm trying to explain here is not. My point here is that you can say, and one can say, I'm comfortable with this, I'm fine with this, it's okay in my marriage or my relationship. But my point is the social data shows that people who are comfortable with open relationships or pornography in their relationship have worse outcomes down the line.
Well, the people who have the worst, worst outcomes when it comes to viewing pornography are people who have moral incongruence with it. That's what there's been a huge meta-analysis where they looked at the number one determinant or the number one predictor of having bad experiences with porn or quote unquote porn addiction, which the medical consensus is it's not a thing, is moral incongruence, and being religious is one of the biggest predictors of that. So I agree, porn is really bad for Catholics. I just don't agree that it's bad for everybody.
But my point here is that even people who find a way to morally rationalize the use of pornography or whatever it is, down the line at large outcomes are worse for open marriages.
But that kind of argument is like saying, well, gambling addiction isn't really real because the people who are most upset about gambling are only the people who are upset about losing money. The people who don't care about losing money, well, they're not really that psychologically disturbed about gambling a lot. But maybe they should be worried about that, just like people should be worried about what porn is doing to them when it desensitizes their brain and it makes them think that I need more and more hits and more disturbing pornography to get off.
But the difference is that with, and that's why the DSM-5 accepts gambling. They've said multiple times, they've rejected porn multiple times because you can't make a link to how much people view.
They include hypersexuality under impulse control disorder.
Not in the DSM-5, that's in the World Health Organization. It's a compulsion, but not an addiction.
But is a compulsion a good thing, Jasmine?
Well, is hypersexuality just a compulsion to masturbate, or is it a compulsion to have sexual experiences?
Either way is a compulsion that you are at the mercy of, and that often brings a lot of harm and suffering.
Percentage.
No, but I don't see the difference there. That if you can be in a situation where I think gambling and porn, they're very similar in their compulsivity. That there are lots of people who can gamble. I gamble, and I didn't lose the house. Lots of people can gamble, but there's a subset when they gamble, it turns their brain on too much and they need to get more and more highs from it, so they gamble more and more and more. And just even seeing the slot machine, it does something to their brain, and they're in a situation where I don't want to be gambling, I feel bad, I don't want to be doing this, but they just can't stop. Similar thing with porn. There's lots of people who watch porn and they don't turn into maniacs or anything like that, but there's a subset where it lights up their brains and they know, I don't want to be doing this, I know it's just killing my marriage, my wife feels awful knowing that I go and look at this stuff, I feel bad, but I can't stop. Don't those seem like similar levels of compulsion?
It may seem that way, but the scientific consensus, right, the DSM-5 statement is that other excessive behavioral patterns such as internet gaming have also been described, but the research on these and other behavioral syndromes is less clear. They make it akin to exercise addiction, shopping addiction, and sex addiction. The data is just not there. The point is that it affects you the way gambling does. That's not me saying it. That's what the scientific consensus
but the DSM-5 is not an infallible Bible for everyone. You have other studies, for example, Love et al. Published a study on the Neuroscientific Foundation of Pornography Addiction, and that was a 2015 article, and they a meta-analysis, and they do link it to other addictions and other compulsions. So I think if people just look at it, you just take a bird's eye view, the person who feels bad gambling and can't stop, the person who feels bad shopping and can't stop, and the person who looks at porn or sees prostitutes and feels bad and can't stop. It all seems pretty similar to me.
But the difference is that with porn, they've done multiple studies where it's like somebody who has positive attitudes toward it versus someone who has negative attitudes toward it. They're watching the same amount and they're having the same.
Those are short-term studies, though.
But it's
So
what all the
but the
data
point is, you
shows.
can tell yourself, again, you can live in unreality and tell yourself, you know, this sexual act of infidelity, I know you don't call it infidelity because someone consented to it, but me going and, you know, being polyamorous, or me going and having multiple sexual experiences outside of my marriage or my relationship, or me going and looking at pornography or using pornography, you can tell yourself and experience short-term pleasure. You absolutely
No, I think
can.
a lot of wives would
So
say
we're
that
not-
if their husband is chatting with you on a live cam, they would say that's cheating. Do you think a
Yes.
lot of
Well,
wives
yeah.
would feel that way?
You
I
don't know
agree.
how many wives find me for their husbands.
Also, wait, hold on. Yeah, when we talk about like cheating or
So, but-
murder,
but-
when we talk about like murder is clearly unjustified killing, right?
Where do we talk about murder?
I'm just saying that the word murder means unjustified killing. It's baked into there's no such thing as a justified murder. When
Right.
you use the word cheating, then you're begging the question. Of course, it's wrong.
Yeah.
But the question is whether or not these behaviors can be engaged in like consensual ways.
My
Right? So to
point-
say that like,
my-
oh
yeah.
well,
But that takes
you're-
us back to what is sex for. That might maybe
That's
we're-
fine. Yeah, we can
My-
go back to that.
my-
Wait,
my
wait, wait,
point
wait,
is
wait.
that-
Hold on, wait.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
Go
gonna
right
say-
ahead.
okay, yeah. I'm just saying that you can't just keep calling it cheating over and over and over again because you're begging the question. You're loading in with the word cheating is baked into this idea that a boundary is being violated or that a non-consensual activity is happening. And that might be your position and that might be your opinion, but you can't have that perspective on two other people's boundaries. If they say, well, in our relationship, we're allowed to watch porn, it's inappropriate
Well,
for
I
you
was
to call
actually
that
making
cheating.
a different point in response to Jasmine's
Well, no, hold on. I'm
position.
just being clear because Jasmine contradicted that point, and then you tried to explain why. Well, actually, it is always infidelity. When infidelity again has baked into it that you're tautologically trying to define
Yeah,
away the
you-
argument, which is whether or not you can engage in these behaviors in a healthy way. And you're saying, well, obviously you can't because it's infidelity. It's like, well, you're begging the question. So if we're going to talk about the behaviors themselves, we can, but you can't call them
You
all
can
cheating or
define the
infidelity.
terms
right?
as you please. I think my point here with
Well,
Jasmine,
hold on. Wait, what I'm not defining it as
Yeah.
please. We all agree that that's what those words mean. Every single person watching. Infidelity and cheating means that you are doing something in contradiction to what your partner wants. We all agree with that. And we all agree
well,
that
it's
those are bad.
specific to sexual behavior
Sure,
outside of your
but everybody
relationship
here
with your
agrees that
partner.
infidelity and cheating is bad, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we all agree with that. So then why say like, well, this is cheating? We already agree that that's bad.
I mean,
It's whether
we
or not
can
it is
agree
cheating,
to
right?
disagree on the point that yes, I think it is infidelity
Well,
or cheating.
So you think that
to
if,
have
like,
sex outside of
Two
your
people are in a
marriage,
relationship
I
and
think
they
that
say
is
that, hey, it's
infidelity or
okay if we
cheating.
watch porn. You think they're still cheating on each other?
I
in
think
your
that is
world?
being unfaithful to each other. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So, but-
she has a different view on it.
Yeah, I
She
understand,
has a
but
different definition, I guess.
Sure.
And we can agree to disagree on that at this point. But my larger point that I was trying to make with you, Jasmine, or kind of get to the bottom of was, yes, you can say I'm feeling great about this. I just had an orgasm. It feels great. I'm so happy with this, pornography I just consumed, or this, webcam person I just spoke with, or whatever, or had this, relationship with, or whatever it is. But in the long term, these things don't serve the person or society. So we can actually agree with you that hedonism feels good in the moment. Like, I don't think Trent would even disagree. At least for the person
Right.
taking part in the hedonism, they might feel sick deep in their conscience. But I think in the moment, physically, they're going to feel good. And that's the temptation of hedonism, right? It's like, it feels good. Of course, I'm going to do it.
But that's not true. I mean, women who view pornography report higher sexual satisfaction, improved communication about sex with
And
their
how
partner,
is there
greater
how is
comfort
the
with
long-term
their own
study on
sexual,
them?
well, greater comfort with their own sexual orientation, more frequent and higher
Is
quality
that
sex,
is that a
easier
is
time
that a
reaching
long-term
orgasm.
study following
There's
their
multiple
life?
studies. Almost
and their
all the
porn
data
use?
on women in pornography in the old days, it used to give them negative body image issues. But since like people like me, you're welcome, or like more amateur porn started coming out, actually women report feeling better about their bodies. There's a huge study about women feeling much better about their vulvas now because they're seeing different types of vulvas represented in
So
porn.
you think pornographic accounts online, like there's a lot of Instagram accounts, for example, that are kind of some soft core pornography, are making women at large and young girls at large feel good about their bodies?
Pornography, there's
I don't think
studies
that's
about
correct at all.
pornography and women who view pornography, because a lot of women watch like amateur porn more so than the mainstream studio porn now, and you're seeing all different kinds of body types. So that study that was done on women who now feel like, oh, I actually feel better about my vulva, I feel better about my body, when we compare that to women who viewed porn in the past, when studio porn was the only kind of porn out, we're seeing a big difference.
Yeah, I mean,
And
at large, sexual objectification of women online and
who is the
objectifying
majority?
certain,
Who views porn
especially
more,
certain
men or
body
women?
parts, has been detrimental to young girls' mental
Men
health.
view
The
porn
idea
more, but
of-
women.
My argument, I think would be our argument, that why pornography and prostitution is bad for society is that it encourages this false view about what sex is for that leads to all of these kinds of bad consequences.
what are the bad
Wait.
consequences?
Also, wait, real
Wait.
quick. Can I run through something? So I'm taking notes on something. Okay. Okay. So real quick on just like from top to bottom. So.
Well, why don't we go back and forth?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can. Yeah, I just want a chance to go back and forth on something. So I heard a lot of points from Red. I haven't been able to jump in on a lot of these. On the first one, so in 2013, the FBI redefined rape to include all forms of penetration on somebody, including like digital penetration. So that largely explains like the huge gap in numbers there. I don't know if you were trying to imply that in 2013 there was a spike that happened due to pornography or due to some other reason.
I'm saying I'm saying that's certainly plausible. It's a part of it, and you don't have enough evidence to say that explains all of the increase.
No, but there was a massive redefinition.
It also wouldn't explain the increase at the same time in England.
And you have
I don't
no
know about the
evidence
increase
that
in England.
porn-
I don't know about the increase in England, but I feel like if the numbers dramatically jumped in 2013, it's strange that you didn't search for the answer for why they jumped and just assumed because it fits the
There's-
narrative of it must be pornography or whatever.
There's
When a
also-
redefining of rape would be a really big reason why the numbers might change. For instance, if
there's-
you're familiar with Sweden's sexual assault statistics relating to immigration and everything, like the Swedish redefinition of a lot of these crimes is a reason why some of these numbers jump. So I think anytime you see a huge jump in the data, I think if you're inquisitive, you'll usually ask like, oh, well, I wonder why the data changed.
But
Yeah.
but
One of the
Destiny, there's
reasons-
also been meta-analysis of porn consumption that shows that many studies that show the link between porn use, and keep in mind a lot of porn today, some studies say 88% of porn today involves violence or aggressive acts.
I don't
and
believe
there's
that.
A, there's
Women
a link
are more
between,
likely
Wait, when you
there's
say
a link
violence or
between-
aggressive acts, what does that mean?
it involves, I mean, at the extreme simulation of sexual
you said
assault.
88%. I watch a lot of porn. I don't know
No.
how much porn is violent or aggressive. I'm just curious what counts as an aggressive act. 88% of porn is aggressive acts?
Forceful, causing pain or discomfort to the person that's being involved in the sexual act.
Yeah, so that's one that was a 2010 study. Another one
but-
that was published by Vera Gray 2021 in the British Journal of Criminology said that it put it at 1 in 8 had acts of violence that would be considered violence, like under things
Sure.
like
The law.
for example, binding forelimbs and penetration, gagging.
Sure.
So-
I could buy
But
the 1 in 8.
to
The 1 in
finish
8.
my first point,
Women
just to
are the
finish-
ones that are disproportionately actually seeking that stuff out. So is that also
Well,
just to police people?
They're also disproportionately
Or
the
But
some
victims.
girls
I
into
would
that.
say,
Wait,
I mean,
hold on
that's-
just a sec.
yeah.
Destiny, you wanted to go, and then Lila,
Yeah.
I'll have your
I
response.
just wanted to
go ahead, Destiny.
So I could believe the 1 in 8 number, the 88%. There's no chance that that's true.
That's not of all pornography. It's of the 300 most common.
Sure. I'm just saying 88% of all pornography being violent, unless you're defining like oral sex as violent, there's no shot that the number is that high. That's just
It's of the most popular.
You know
and
what?
that's why on Pornhub you're having teens, and then you're having step parents involved or stepmom involved.
I think
increasingly
I think urinating
deranged forms of it.
and ejaculating on somebody's face. I think that's violent and degrading.
I understand what you're saying, but to the vast majority of normal human beings, urinating on somebody's face is far different than ejaculating on somebody's face. Maybe in the Catholic world, those are similar things, but in the ordinary world, those are two completely and totally separate acts.
I think most people in the regular world would consider that utterly degrading.
I'm saying those two things are different. If you want to classify both of them as degrading, that's fine.
Why are they different?
Because I don't know how much into detail, but urinating on somebody's face, the kink of water sports, is considered to be generally more extreme. There's far fewer people that are into it, and you're involving non-sexual fluids now in like a sexual sense. That's just considered a more hardcore type of.
Why? If anything, urine is probably a more sterile liquid, and just because fewer people do it doesn't mean it's more extreme. I'm sure there's fewer people who do like Star Trek cosplay porn, but that doesn't mean it's more extreme than others just because it's a minority. I think that's just
It's probably considered more
intuition
extreme.
here.
It's not an intuition. It's because generally the further you get away from things that are less directly involved with sex, and then like the more uncomfortable those things tend to make people, the more we would classify those things as being kind of like extreme. I think it's like I mean, I don't know if I'm sure we could have a huge debate on like is bukkake porn considered extreme, or is it just like a hardcore kink? We can get into it. I'm just saying in general, if you look at the number of people into a kink like water sports, or you mentioned like scatology, like stuff like that, versus
Water
people that are
sport.
into,
You're talking about. Is that just urinating on others, or is it other?
urinating on people.
Yeah.
Or I think anything involving people. I'm not sure. I don't.
Okay.
Maybe Brian can fill us in more on.
Because that's just euphemism. I enjoy water sports. I don't enjoy that.
Well,
So.
that's what it's called.
Well,
right?
I don't care. I mean, people can come up with all this sort of stuff to smooth over. What is
hold
actually
on. No one's
going
trying to.
on
I'm just trying to give an accurate accounting
That's
of
fine.
of how we refer to these things. If you're looking them up, or trying to find
Go
out.
ahead. Did you want to ask anything else? Or I have a question
I
as
reject
well.
this idea of like, well, as pornography increases, child sex material increases. Therefore,
That's a fact, though.
That's
Destiny.
fine that it's a fact. But what I notice is oftentimes with porn, to try to refute like the central point, people will point to a negative outcome that might be increasing and pretend that counts as a refutation of the single point. A statement that I can
That's
make.
not what we did, though, Destiny.
That's exactly what you're doing.
No.
You're saying that as pornography increases, child sexual material might increase, which means it's an attack against pornography. What I would say is
it's a form of pornography.
Let me finish my statement. What I would say, it is a form of pornography. Literally, the increase of anything involving, say, children playing video games necessarily increases the exposure of them to people looking to abuse children. That doesn't necessarily mean that online video games or children playing online video games are bad. It just means you have to control for the negative outcome of people abusing people playing online video games. Same thing with pornography. It's not an argument against pornography if some people might abuse it in a way. There might be some people that actually record actual sexual assault. That's not an argument against pornography. It's an argument against people doing that bad thing.
It is an argument of the most commonly searched for terms are things like teen, barely legal, and they're constantly searched over and over as the most popular thing, which people aren't doing with like video games.
what
I mean,
is, like,
here's
the
here's
harm?
here's
If something- well, if
but
something-
here's the theory that I think that the social data proves very clearly, and this is the point, that when we disorder sex, when we divorce sex from love, fidelity, commitment, family, like the whole project of marriage, I'm gonna, sex can bring life into the world. If we do bring a life into the world, we're going to stick together, love each other, build a family together. When you take sex out of that context, out of the context of love and marriage, and you put it in the context of my goal, my orgasm, what I want, right? At whatever cost I can pay, provided someone else consents, right? It's not just, I think, that person that will suffer and the other people engaged directly in that will suffer, but it is children. And so you said, well, yes, okay, there's a proliferation of child sexual assault material, yeah, but that's not saying porn is responsible for that. That is a form of the porn that's being created and consumed at large in our society. So to say that children are somehow unscathed by the proliferation of porn, I think is totally untrue, Destiny.
That's fine,
And in
but
addition,
to say that it... Okay.
And in addition, I'll just say one other thing. The flip side of this, we've debated on this before, Trent has as well. Sexual hedonism at large, in addition, leads to what we have today, which is abortion on demand. You mentioned abortion rates are so low. They're actually very high. There are nearly 1 million a year
they're lower
in this
since
country.
When porn, with the wide availability of porn, it's gone down a lot. So I'm
But
just
the
curious, 'cause
internet
you guys
has-
are saying,
but
oh my gosh,
not
there's all
in-
this violent stuff now.
Jasmine,
I'm looking
you
at
know,
the data.
Jasmine.
There's nothing linking porn
Jasmine,
to increased
there's more-
violence. Is there actually a lot of studies that link the wide availability of pornography to less
Jasmine,
violence? I have
there's
3
more
studies
pornography
right here.
today.
We found that in the Czech
But Jasmine,
Republic, in
Jasmine,
Denmark,
3 or
in
4
Japan,
decades ago,
in
it was
China,
fine
and
to
in
Playboy
Hong Kong.
magazine or go to an adult video store.
These are
Today, porn is everywhere.
So why are we
So-
not seeing this proliferation of violence and all these terrible things
we're
happening?
seeing a
no,
lot
we're not.
of-
Those are all
we're
less
seeing a
than
lot
they
of
were
social
before.
ills.
When there were just those Playboy magazines,
That-
we had way more of that stuff than we do now with
So
pornography
you're
widely
saying
available.
so is your argument that we had less child sexual assault material?
Child abuse has declined.
So
And
you
this is from
saying
the-
are you saying that child sexual assault material can be created without child abuse?
I'm saying that that like child abuse cases, all of those have gone down. I'm also saying
That's
that
incorrect,
STD
Jasmine.
rates have
It's-
gone. This is according to
That's
the,
incorrect.
so
That's
It's
incorrect.
just incorrect. Okay, well, what
Yeah.
data do you have that shows
So
that that's
your argument is that the proliferation of porn somehow that has led to less
I didn't
child
say it's
sexual abuse.
led to. I'm not saying causation.
So what's
here.
your argument
My
then?
argument here is that if porn became widely available and it's so violent and it's so terrible, then how come we're not seeing those outcomes
Why is there
reflected
a
in real
proliferation
life?
of child sexual assault material on the internet and it increases
Because
every year?
we have
Jasmine?
the internet now. We didn't have the internet before, but since we've had the internet,
So you-
we've had less abortion, less syphilis, less gonorrhea, less teen sex, less teen birth rates have fallen 33% according to the CDC. SA has declined, and then
so
there was
your
that spike, and-
argument is that child sexual assault material is not porn, or what is your argument?
My
then?
argument, I'm not even talking about child sexual assault material.
What are you
now. My argument here is that when porn became widely available, we didn't see an increase in violence. In fact, I have lots of studies here that show that once porn became widely available, like for instance in the Czech Republic,
when did porn become widely available in the United States?
around the early 2000s. That's what I read.
So I think I can understand the argument you're making, but I don't think it bears out. For example,
Right.
with divorce rates, as an example, as I said earlier, one of the second highest, most quoted thing when it comes to divorce today is the pornography use of one of the partners.
But divorce
So-
rates have also gone down since the
but
early
overall,
2000s.
they've gone up over the last
Not since the
40,
so this
50
is my
years.
question.
But-
Since porn has
So-
become available, they have not gone up. They've actually gone down since the early 2000s.
Well, one reason
So-
they go down is people are
I-
choosing not to marry in the
That's
first
less
place.
fine,
people
but what
marrying,
I'm
that's
saying, and I
true.
don't think they're choosing not. I don't think they're not choosing to get married because
but
porn
I-
is available. But you have no link to that. My question is,
But hold on,
if
I think
all
it's a
of-
fact. It is a fact that the sexual revolution, which took place in this country mid 20th century, which opened the floodgates of pornography, first with, Playboy magazine, and then later on with the internet, which opened the floodgates to, no-fault divorce, more divorce, swinger culture, open marriages, all of this stuff, abortion, all of this stuff, that those social ills all mushroomed together. And
So
they
then-
still exist in large quantities in our society today together. Because when you treat sex just as orgasm or as something that as an adult I'm entitled to as long as I consent and someone else is consenting, and sex has no other morality around it, you are opening the door, and we have the doors wide open to divorce, to abortion, to a lot of the unhappiness that we're seeing in relationships
So
today.
you said all
think
the
wait-
social
porn is
data,
part of
though, agrees with you, but I'm pointing out that abortion rates have fallen 41% since the 90s. So
But
since-
abortion rates, since porn has been entered into the mainstream,
yes, has
has
gone down.
up over the last 50 years dramatically.
But
So-
it became widely available in the late 90s. So the CDC abortion rates have fallen 41%
I don't think the data
since
shows
the
what you're saying it's
1990s.
showing.
People
But-
look it up. This is the CDC that's saying this.
But you don't think that porn is the only reason?
I
for
don't think that. But
Or-
my
but we don't even
question
know
to
if it's
you
a
is
reason.
Yeah,
that
she's
if
not
it's
even
such a
arguing that
terrible
porn is the
thing,
cause of
where
it.
are these terrible outcomes?
And
Because
I'm trying
not
to say
seeing
that
them.
I'm trying to say that porn, whether it was the Playboy porn or it's the vastly available internet porn,
The terrible
So you're saying they're the same?
I think that they are part of the same problem, which is divorcing meaning from sex and welcoming, putting arms around hedonistic culture that breaks down families and breaks down marriages. And I'm saying that in the last 50 years in this country, we have seen unprecedented divorce,
50 years?
unprecedented abortion. We've seen unprecedented STIs. The sexual revolution's
Okay.
harm
Are we
at
talking
large.
about the
I think-
sexual
okay, hold on. I
revolution
think-
or porn? Because I'm not talking about 50 years. I'm talking about since porn became widely available. You guys are saying, and all these terrible things, teen mom porn, so violent. Where are the outcomes that show that this is such an harm? Because I'm not seeing
about-
that.
how
I have
about the
3
first-
studies here. Actually, there's a lot of evidence that
Do
porn
you
has
think-
a cathartic effect.
Do you
on
think
men.
it's bad, Jasmine, that the average first stage of exposure to pornography is 11 years old?
I don't think that's ideal, but I don't think
No,
that
it's
we're
not
seeing-
asked. I said, is it bad?
Yeah, I think it's bad, but I'm not seeing that it's so bad that it's leading to such terrible outcomes, because it's not.
What
And where
hap-
are these outcomes?
What happens when children are exposed to pornography?
Actually, there's also a lot of conflicting data on that. A lot of the data on this is really frustrating because it's really conflicting.
is
I
it-
have studies here
Well,
that
we're
show
living
that
in
it's
a
not.
But
really.
Jasmine,
Are-
part of the reason for that is we're living in a social
Wait,
experiment.
hold on 1 second. I want to know, is it
ahead.
bad when 11-year-olds, their first exposure to pornography? I'm just saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a bad thing in the sense that
why,
it's not
why
ideal.
why is it bad? What does it do to them?
It's like they're not old enough. Their prefrontal cortex isn't developed enough to be able to look at that and realize what's real, what's not real, how sex is supposed to go. So I don't think porn is a great way.
How is sex supposed to go?
Probably not like if you're on Pornhub watching like 8 people gangbang someone, they're going to think that is normal.
That's not normal?
Not
Okay,
like,
wait, hold on, wait. Okay, I think when we talk about how sex is supposed to go, okay, I think we have to build a constructive case for what are different ways that we can view sex. You guys seem to be really happy to say that like sex ought to be this, or society's destroyed sex, or blah, 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 blah. I think that you can posit a separate argument that sex is actually something that the body is capable of experiencing, that is a lot of fun, and we've evolved beyond the need to view sex as just a tool or a facility to pump out children, and instead can view it as a way to bond with people or have fun or enjoy recreationally. I think that we have the tools today to enjoy that because we've got things to protect or cure STDs. We've got ways to prevent pregnancies. We've got different types of birth controls. I think that it's okay that society has taken on a different view of sex, just like we've taken on a different view of women working jobs, or a different view of what kind of clothes can we wear because we have air conditioning, or a different view of what are the hours that we can be awake, where we can travel. I think it's just natural that different things will evolve over time,
Destiny.
that we'll view different things. Yeah, we can view things differently based on our way of engaging with them.
According to the Gobecker Institute, for women that got abortions, 50% of them in the month that they got pregnant were using contraception. So when you kind of say, well, now we have these technologies that can somehow sort of blunt the natural consequences of
I'm
sex.
sorry,
so
wait, what was
therefore
what was that supposed to refute?
So what's that supposed to refute is you're saying that we have all of these powers now.
To change the way we
technologies,
engage with sex,
to
yes.
change the way we engage with
Was anything
sex.
I said incorrect?
I think it's fully incorrect. to
Okay,
say
do you think that
this- but let
contraception
me finish,
reduces the
Destiny,
likelihood?
let me
Well, no,
finish.
let's one stat at a
Let
time.
me finish.
No, hold on, because
I
you're
didn't
started
even
with
get to ask my question.
I didn't even barely talk for 2 sentences, and you wanted to cut me off with the thing about abortion. So I'm going to ask you: do you think contraception is effective at dramatically reducing the rates of getting impregnated?
I think that at large, contraception has led to the mindset, a contraceptive
I'm going to ask the
mindset.
same question again when you finish this.
I
It
think
depends
that
if all
over
the-
time,
Okay. I'll
it
just keep
actually
asking then. That's okay.
increases, it actually leads to more abortion over time.
Do you think that contraception is effective at preventing pregnancies?
It can in the short term, but over time, it leads to more abortion.
Really? Do you have any evidence that
There's been-
somebody that
there's
is
been
on?
studies-
So you're saying you have a study right now that shows that somebody on contraception, on average, has more children over their lifetime than somebody that doesn't use contraception.
No, what I'm saying
Okay,
is,
so then
for
you don't have
example,
any
if you
evidence for that.
introduce-
I don't know.
no,
I don't.
let me
I don't.
finish.
You're well, no, because
There
you're
have
giving.
been-
No. You're giving me a lot of
Let-
like socially constructed opinions. You have no data
No,
for it
I
based
have
on your
data for
presumptions
that.
of how you think that sex should operate religiously. But I reject those things. So obviously we know
are
that
not-
we know that
Destiny,
contraception.
Destiny,
yeah,
we are
know
not
that-
making a case that sex ought to be done religiously or ought to be done in this particular way. We are just saying that the view that prostitution and pornography require, which is that sex is just a hedonistic activity.
Nobody. Why does it require that?
Because it would be wrong if okay. Well, what would you? How would you answer the
It
question?
can have many purposes. I think that when I go to a massage parlor, I'm paying, $80 to get a massage.
Right.
That can just be a person giving me a massage. With a partner, having a partner rubbing your back or your neck, that can feel like a lot more romantic.
So-
just because I go to the massage parlor doesn't mean I devalue the experience with like a partner. No? Or do you think it does? Earlier, you used the phrase, sex work isn't real because sex for hire doesn't make sense. It's like a friend for hire. What is a therapist? Can't you pay a therapist to review your problems with them
But
and then they
once you
give you
stop
feedback?
paying
And
them,
then,
they'll stop being
but
your
here's the
friend.
thing.
and once you stop paying a sex worker, they stop having sex with you. Yeah.
But the whole point
That's
of
why
it,
it's called work. Yeah.
no,
ahead.
because
the point
we
is that
don't
it's more
have.
meaningful than that.
Of course, it is more meaningful. I would agree. Just like having a really good, intimate conversation with a friend is more meaningful than having an intimate
I'm
conversation
so
with a
sorry.
therapist.
We've
Of course.
skipped around so many different places.
Only
There was
because I'm following
something-
you and your tangents. but go ahead.
I was trying to ask you made a
So if sex work is just a skill, it's something that people enjoy.
Yeah.
Do there have to be? Is this something that only specialists can? Well, let's say for example, so Jasmine, a lot of people do OnlyFans. They have other jobs. Like you're a lawyer, people have other jobs. So you can have someone who's a masseuse and does OnlyFans, or a therapist and does OnlyFans, right? Okay. So you're like a sex worker by night, masseuse, therapist during the day. Would it be okay if they offered those sex services as a part of their day job, being a masseuse?
Depends on what the
being a
day job
therapist?
is. If it's like a lawyer or something, or if it's like a therapist, probably not, because you're violating like an appropriate relationship to have with somebody. But if it's like your auto mechanic and he also sells you like pictures of his dick, it's probably not as big of a deal. It would
Let me
depend on
give you
the type
another
of
example.
relationship.
So my wife was a nurse at the hospital, so she worked with neurotelemetry and people have brain injuries, spine injuries, stuff like that, and also older people and people who would need things like bathing and cleaning. Okay. So they need, to be cleaned, including clean their peritoneum, perineal care. So just like groin, crotch, butt, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And some of them would ask her, and this would also happen to other nurses, hey, while you're down there, could you just play with my wee-wee a little bit, or, masturbate me?
Okay.
So let's say you have a nurse who is also an OnlyFans, is a sex worker on the side. Should she be allowed to offer that? Is that
My understanding, and I'm not a medical professional, but my understanding is that when you're making decisions related to patient care, if a patient under your care, engaging in friendly or sexual relationships with them can cause an inappropriate crossing of boundaries that compromises your ability to deliver good medical care. So I would say that in the case where somebody's like a therapist or a medical professional that's making decisions relating to your healthcare, it's probably
why?
not
Because you
appropriate.
just related
but
therapy
why?
to
Lawyers
friendship.
can't even
and,
accept
and
saying
say
Hold
it
on,
was
wait. How did my
work when sex
relation of
is
therapy
work.
to friendship break anything that I just said?
Because you're saying that you can't enter this new dynamic of sexual relationship in a healthcare setting because that somehow violates the healthcare setting.
what's
Why?
being violated?
That's Trent's question. Why?
What did I just say was being violated?
What is being violated?
I
Tell me again.
said it like 3 times. I'll repeat it again. It's compromising your ability to deliver care.
But if the care is included,
Let me ask you this question:
Sex work's included in care. It's
If the
Trent's
sex
point.
work, you wouldn't include sex work and health work together in care unless you're because
No. Okay.
yeah.
So.
We could invent a scenario where that's true. What if you're going to a hospital and part of the care is my husband has issues with erectile dysfunction? Maybe part of the health services is them jerking you off to make sure everything's working. In that case, you would combine it. Would you agree, or would you say
No.
it's still inappropriate? Wait, I want to answer for that. Would you, if that case, would that be an appropriate
No, I
combination
don't
of
think
like?
you should go to people to jerk you off. No, that's.
Do you
not
think it
your
would be
spouse.
do you think us ignoring your personal sexual views? Do you think it would
It's
be
not
appropriate?
a personal sexual view. It's the view that's actually been
Because
held
sex-
for thousands of years by many millions
So
and billions
if
of people.
you're going to a hospital and they're trying to check you for a working sexual function, them seeing if you can get an erection, that would be an inappropriate way for them to examine you.
I think if they are really trying to determine if you can get an erection, there's a way, and you're a married person in a marriage. There's
What
a
if
way
you're not
to
a married person?
determine
What if
that.
you're single?
Why would they need to determine that?
Because believe it or not,
What
there
would
are
be the
people in
medical
this world that
situation?
even when they're not married, they want to ensure that their sexual function is working.
And sex is
Wait, no, wait. I
we're
really
not-
want to answer that. I really want to answer that.
I
You
don't
disagree with
I
that? You don't think your
it's
sexual function is
necessary.
relevant if you're not
No,
married?
I think it's relevant, but I think that I don't think it would be good care to go into a hospital and say,
There is
Okay,
a
hold on, wait. I really want to answer this. So, if you have problems with erectile dysfunction, it would be inappropriate for a healthcare provider to assess the ability of you to get an erection while you're at the hospital. That's inappropriate.
I mean, I think it depends. I'm curious what the standard of care is for that right now. I mean, do you know what the standard of care is?
I'm
right
not,
now?
but I'm asking you as a hypothetical. But I'm asking
Yeah.
if you go to the hospital, you have problems with erectile dysfunction. Doctor, I've got issues. And they say, okay, we're going to give you a medication. We're going to try something. And we'll see if we can get an
I think
erection.
it would be a strange form of care to say, well, let's try
I didn't ask if it
things.
was strange or not. I asked if it was appropriate.
I don't think it would be appropriate.
No,
You don't
I
think it'd be
I
appropriate?
think giving a
Okay.
medication.
So that
I think
type
we-
of med-
no.
so that
To be
type of
clear-
healthcare is totally
We
outlawed.
would
in New York.
agree.
To be
It's
clear,
fine.
giving a medication would be appropriate.
It's
in
fine to
that case,
use
but
medical
to
treatment.
stimulate them.
It's fine to use
is
medical
not
treatment to see if your body is working properly.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine to do things to acquire semen, for example. You might use, for example, with some patients, use electroejaculation stimulation of the prostate in order to
Jesus.
get. Well, for some patients, that's what you have to do, including if they're paralyzed.
Okay, I understand
So-
what you just said was a way more hardcore kink than water sports, but okay, go ahead. Jeez.
No, to see if you can ejaculate, to see if you're able. There is a difference between trying to determine if your body is functioning properly and saying that sex is just a service that can be provided.
Well,
Hold on. If we provide people in the hospital, we provide them all kinds of services to make sure they're comfortable, right? Like we give them television. They don't need that to live, right?
Okay.
But it makes them comfortable, correct?
Yeah.
So we give patients stuff in the hospital to make sure that they stay as comfortable. We give them television. We give them different food they can choose. We give them bathing, obviously. And when they're very uncomfortable, we do things to make sure they're comfortable. So if a patient says, sex would make me very comfortable, why wouldn't, if a nurse can clean the guy's testicles and penis and is already handling all of this, why not just you put on the gloves and give him a hand job?
Well, one is because it's illegal.
what if-
Two, if it were legal, my guess would be the procedure for that would be you would bring in a third party or you contract
Why?
out to somebody.
Why do you bring in a third party
I've already
to give the guy?
explained it.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Why do you need to bring in a third party to give the guy a hand job and not a third party to wipe his butt and clean between his peritoneum?
Because when you start engaging in romantic or sexual or
Well, who says it's
friendships-
romantic? It's just getting.
I
off.
said
still
or means
intimate.
any of these. When
Yeah.
you engage in romantic or sexual or friendship type things,
Yeah.
that these things are all inappropriate because they compromise your ability to objectively offer care. For instance, would it be inappropriate to say, well, can you please just like jerk me off? You're going to clean my ass? Yes, that would be, because if a patient starts to have a sexual relationship with a practitioner, then if that practitioner has to make a tough call on that patient's health,
But
that
you-
might be compromised.
but
The same way that
Destiny,
let's say the person starts saying like, man, you know, my
But
kids
why,
never
why
come.
does sex do this stuff?
But it's
Let me
not
just finish. Hold on, I gotta finish this one thing. Oh my god. Okay. Let's say that the patient comes in, or the nurse comes in, and the patient starts talking to the nurse like, "Man, my kids aren't calling me. Like, I don't know what to do." And then the nurse sits around and they start talking blah 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 blah. That would be equally inappropriate. That would be incredibly inappropriate.
wait,
If they
repeat
started
that?
to form a very close friendship with a patient, that would also be inappropriate, because again, if a tough call has to be made on the patient, at some point you might not be able to make that tough call because now your judgment is compromised. This is why surgeons that have like wives or husbands don't operate on them, because their judgment is compromised.
But what if you can give hand jobs and you're not attached? It's just sex work.
Well, right now, in terms of how human relationships and everything work, it seems
Okay,
to be
so
the case
you're
that
saying something very important, which is that there is an emotional,
Well, can I
psychological
go-
component
so
to sex.
As a lawyer, we have rules
Am
on
I
how we're
understanding you
able to
correctly, though?
engage with people.
Hold
We're
on,
not
I just
allowed
wanna-
to
I wanna
accept
make
gifts,
sure,
for instance.
I
Like,
want to
as-
make sure I'm understanding Destiny correctly and what he just said.
Hold on. Let
Okay.
Lila go, then we'll have you
okay.
come in. Go.
And I do want to get back to the contraception thing, but you had said that there's an emotional, romantic connection to sex. That's I don't know if you used the word-
oftentimes there can be, yes.
Yes. So that sounds like more than work.
It can be.
Yeah. So you're when you guys talk about
Wait,
sex
no, hold
work,
on.
like
I'm sorry.
it's
Wait,
something-
I'm sorry, real quick. I reject that. What do you mean that sounds like more than work?
When you talk about sex work, like we can sell this commodity of sex, like
It's a service.
to lead, like it's a service. You're saying, well, but more emotions and psychological, romantic feelings get involved. Therefore, it doesn't belong in the professional setting of healthcare. That's what you're
Because
saying.
but like,
So how can you still say it's work and it's a professional? This
do
professional
teachers
job?
work?
Yes,
Do they have emotional connections to children and parents?
and they should. That's a
okay,
healthy
so then
thing.
that argument doesn't make any sense. So what's the next one?
Well, are you saying that a nurse should not have an emotional connection at all to her patient?
Generally, they try to minimize it. Yes.
They should have empathy. That's actually required for nurses to have empathy.
You're telling
They
me-
shouldn't have
Are
empathy.
you-
They should have compassion. They're two different things, because empathy
They-
can compromise your
sure,
ability
we
to
can
deliver.
Are
use
you
the word
saying a
compassion,
nurse
that's fine, but
can't
I-
understand the personal background, desires, hopes, and develop a friendly rapport with a patient?
I
You can
think you're
have like
making a
a friendly
distinction where there isn't
you
one.
can no it's a key, it's a crucial distinction. Having a friendly rapport with somebody is different than becoming personally emotionally invested in the outcome. You have to maintain an appropriate level of distance, whether you're a lawyer,
Right.
whether
And
you're a
I
medical
agree.
professional.
And sex crosses that line because of what sex just
But
intrinsically
many
is.
things cross that line. Like I just said, when you're a lawyer, you can't accept certain gifts. You can't get too close to your clients. They can't become like best friends to you. That's going to cause problems for you down the line. We take entire classes on this, on all the ways we're not supposed to get too close with our clients. And it's not all sexually. It's even just in friendship.
Yeah.
So professionalism, the standard for professionalism, I agree, it's not professional to offer sexual services to somebody in a setting where that's not appropriate. But there are other things that aren't appropriate either. It doesn't mean they're all bad and that you can't use
Okay.
them in a
Yeah.
different